hockey team. It is great to be here with you all from Vancouver, and we have a lot of time and respect for the Vancouver Canucks, absolutely. And your presence in this room reflects the business community of Vancouver, which, from what I gather from the head table and from what I understand, is very strong and a great group. I hope you're also here to learn about Molson Coors, which it's an interesting story that I'll tell of a company that's been around for a very long time, and something we're very proud of, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Thank you to Molson customers that are here today. It's great to have partners here with us that have many of whom have been with us for decades, and so thank you all for coming today. Thanks for the support. I'm here with my brother Andrew, who is the chairman of the board of Molson Coors. Andrew and I represent the seventh generation of the Molson family members involved in the brewing business. And this makes us the great-great-great-great-grandson of John Molson, who founded North America's oldest brewery in 1786 in Montreal. Vancouver is our first stop of a cross-country tour that we're going to make to all of the offices of Molson Coors, and we're going to end up in St. John's, Newfoundland, where we're going to have the East Coast celebration of 225 years of brewing. And so we're really looking forward to it, and this is stop number one for us, and we're glad to be here. My last visit to Vancouver was during the Olympics, the 2010 Olympics, and I was lucky enough to have a ticket to go to the gold medal game and watch Sidney Crosby score the big goal in overtime, but more importantly to see Vancouver be such an amazing host to the world. It was easy to get around. It was very well orchestrated, and the execution of the Olympics from a Vancouver perspective was really outstanding, and it was a great experience for me. Our local brewery here is in the heart of Kitsilano district, and was also the theater of emotional moments as we hosted friends, partners, and Vancouverites together with Olympic champions to celebrate Canada's Olympic adventure. And of course, there was the Molson Canadian Hockey House, which played a very important role in making sure that everyone had fun while they watched sports. We've been in British Columbia for 53 years. My grandfather and great uncle, Tom and Heartland, came here 54 years ago to buy the Capilano Brewery, which was the local brewery here. In fact, my father's first job in beer was here when he was a youngster, and he was a brewer, and so he came out here to learn how to make beer with people from Vancouver, probably where he learned everything he needs to know about making good beer. Recently, we added the Granville Island Brewery to our family of brands, and this is part of a strategy that we have to participate in local markets with local beer companies while maintaining their local presence. And Granville Island is one of the most successful micro-beer companies in recent times, and certainly in British Columbia, and is a great partner of ours, and a group of brands that we plan to bring across the country. Our Vancouver brewery, which we recently invested $7.5 million this year, has 250 employees, and are very proud to lead the way in terms of corporate responsibility. Globally, Molson Coors has developed environmental and community investment programs that contribute to the health and growth of communities across BC. We've developed and implemented solutions for water use and conservation across our brewery network. And here in Vancouver, our brewery is recognized by BC Hydro as a Power Smart Leader with the Leadership Excellence Award. And we're proud of this. We're very proud of this. It's earned PowerSmart leaders are chosen based on progressively achieving improved levels of energy savings year over year. And we've demonstrated that, and we're proud to be part of that group. So we're thrilled that our anniversary tour is taking us back to Vancouver, starting in Vancouver. It's an opportunity for us to recall and share with Canadians across the country the defining moments of our history and our company. And it provides an ideal backdrop for us to raise our glass and cheer the communities across the country that have contributed to our success for the past 225 years. Today, I'd like to share a few thoughts about the roots of our company and the values and the principles that have enabled our success over the years. If we could look briefly into the past to better understand the strategic and the historical importance of Molson Coors, I would appreciate your attention on that before we get into the good stuff. Few companies can boast a heritage as rich as Molson Coors. In fact, it's not only the oldest brewery in North America, but it's also the second oldest company in Canada. And it's the only company that beats us in terms of age was a fur trading company named the Hudson's Bay Company. Most families don't exceed 3 generations of family business, and Andrew and I are proud to represent the 7th generation. Our ancestor, John Molson, founded the brewery in Montreal in 1786, in the exact same location that it operates today. In fact, sometimes we refer to ourselves as Canada's first microbrewery. Even though we are a big global brewer now, it all started with a microbrewery in Montreal. And so people often ask us how we do this, how we last for 7 generations in the beer business. And I'm going to review that in a minute, but it's not something that I would say is a revolution in management of companies or in family businesses. It's really quite straightforward. It's quite rational. And I'll show you a quick video that explains our culture and our heritage, and then we'll get into understanding the 7 generations in beer.
What motivates a brewer to see beyond the beer? To challenge expectations, to change a culture, to look for new methods when the current ones work, to champion innovation and technology, yet still rely on the basic human senses. Why build a steamship, a bank, or a railway? Hold a seat in Parliament, finance a school, or support the game? Why build a theater or a hospital? For John Molson, it wasn't just about brewing a better beer. It was something bigger. It was about obligation, responsibility, and commitment to a growing nation. It was about values that would guide a company for over 2 centuries. Values of integrity and respect, an unwavering dedication to quality, passion, and creativity, and a belief that, just as with the brewer's skill, it's the alchemy of these values that leads to excellence. Today, these values live on, and we share them with another great brewing legacy. In 2005, we joined with the Adolph Coors Company, bringing together 2 family traditions firmly rooted in their communities for generations and dedicated to growing in today's global market. Together, we have over 15,000 employees, 18 breweries, and distribution in more than 30 countries. And as always, our global reach has a local touch. From our Moncton Brewery to the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, to launching innovative new brands and taking our flagship brands to the world, we continue to build out from our core values. And we continue to build on the values of our founders. We brew more than beer. For 225 years, we've been brewing truly great moments, bringing Canadians together, and now the world.
So that's John Molson, the founder, and he came over to Canada in 1782, and at the age of 22 years old in 1786, he founded the brewery, and prices of other alcohol products were going up, and so he saw an opportunity to become a brewer, and he did. But he was not only a brewer. That was the first thing that he did in Canada. He also invested heavily in communities and the infrastructure of Canada. He built the country's first steamship line. He invested in the railway that now crosses Canada. He built Montreal's first public hospital. He built Montreal's first school, theater, and he started the Molson's Bank, which provided for the community as well. And once Molson's Bank hit 125 branches, it merged with the Bank of Montreal in 1925. And so the money in Canada was called Molson's money up until 1925. And so we also joke as a family, the biggest mistake we made was getting out of the banking business. But it certainly is an interesting story. I mean, he obviously started the bank for reasons more than to make money. It was probably to provide a service that people needed out there to have access to money. Among the many qualities of John Molson was, as I mentioned, his sense of community. He believed that the long-term success of his company was closely linked to the trust he had established within the community and through his involvement in the community. He believed in the importance of giving back to those who have encouraged him to succeed. And in speaking to his employees in 1825, a famous quote that remains part of our culture at Molson, he said, "We're all members of a larger community, which depends on everyone playing a part." And to this day, we believe this. Our commitment to communities is a tradition that, as I said, is part of our cultural fabric now. And every one of our employees, all 3,500 of us, are heavily involved in communities in some way or another across the country. Through the Molson Coors Donations Fund, we support hundreds of local and national charities and nonprofit organizations where our employees work and play. And over the past 5 years, we've invested nearly $300,000 in communities across British Columbia in support of organizations such as Victoria's Braefoot Community Centre and Vancouver's Canada One Athletic Foundation. Our employees are also encouraged to engage with their respective communities through the Molson Coors Volunteer Program. And in 2010, our employees dedicated over 4,000 hours to their local communities. In particular, last May, 20 employees from here donated their time to plant trees at Oak Meadow Park, right here in Vancouver. As we celebrate 225 years of community involvement in Canada, we're especially proud to pursue John Molson's legacy of launching a brand new philanthropic program called the Molson Coors Community Cheer. Through the Community Cheer, Molson will be donating up to $1 million from coast to coast in support of a minimum of 20 projects, programs, and initiatives that promote active living. Our objective is to bring the community members together, to be physically active, and to have a good time, either through a construction or an improvement of sports and recreation facilities, or through initiatives that support or motivate sports within communities. We believe that healthy communities are successful communities. And being in the beer business, we know that our product is about bringing communities together, about connecting Canadians. The legacy of community involvement, along with a strong focus on developing a high-quality product, is really what we're all about. Our goal is to become and to maintain our position as Canada's favorite beer. John Molson said himself, "An honest brew makes its own friends. My principal objective is to bring the ale brewing to perfection in Canada. Good ale is all I want. Plenty of customers will follow." And he was right. Over 2 centuries of experience has also taught us about the importance of innovation. John Molson himself was an innovator in many ways. Sorry. Is my voice hoarse or something like that? Or he developed his own yeast strain to make sure that his product was of superior quality to the other ones. He was the first in North America to use a thermometer to increase the accuracy of the brewing process. He was the first to bring bottles to Canada for bottling beer. And he was also the first to bring returnable bottles to Canada, which is something we're very proud of, is our environmental contribution by having returnable, refillable bottles. In a world where our consumers are constantly asking for more, through John Molson and his leadership, we've learned that innovation becomes paramount. There are a few other principles that we have as a family that are extremely important to us, and ones that we believe can explain the multi-generation survival that we've had. And one is to always have a clearly defined long-term vision. When we think about our business as a family, we have to think about it in terms of a public company for sure, but we also think about it in terms of generations. And so balancing the short term with the long term is not easy, but if you're committed to transgenerational performance, it can work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. A good example of balancing short term with transgenerational vision happened in 2005 when Molson decided to merge with Coors. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but I'll tell the story. Molson is, and at the time was a dominant brewery in Canada, and Coors was a strong brewery in the U.S. Neither one of us with a significant footprint out of our own markets. And the vulnerability of our company was high because we were a public company, so always looking out for the best interests of shareholders, that had a choice to make. Do we hunker down and try and continue to maintain our presence in Canada and really focus on being a great Canadian beer company? Or do we go after becoming a great world beer company? And as a family, we chose the latter, which is to try and conquer the world, one market at a time, with our beer company. However, to achieve that, we couldn't do it alone. And so this is where the balancing of short-term and long-term comes into play. Our family believes in this company. We believe that we should always be making decisions that are in the best interest of our shareholders. And so in order to become what we wanted to be, which is a global beer company, we had to give up some of the control that we had of Molson, because we wanted another partner that shared that same vision, and Coors was that partner. And so here we were in control of our own destiny, but vulnerable, but at the same time with an opportunity to share our company 50-50 with another family and with another group of shareholders. And we chose that path. It was an emotional time for us, but we knew from a transgenerational perspective it was the right decision. And we also knew from a short-term perspective our shareholders would be satisfied and would be happy with it. So that's an example of the leadership of my father, who, as the 6th generation of Molsons, will go down in history, in our family at least, as the person who enabled the seventh generation by that move. I talked about always acting in the best interest of our shareholders. This is an extremely important part of our culture as a family. Molson Coors is a dual-class share structure, and there's a class of share that is controlled by the Molson and the Coors family, and then there are the public shareholders, of which is the majority of shares, actually, that are owned by the public. And so we have a responsibility as families to always make decisions that are for the benefit of the shareholders, not ourselves. And if you maintain that discipline at all times, everybody wins. And you maintain that long-term stability, and you maintain the potential to have transgenerational success. The minute you start looking in the mirror and doing things because you're emotional, or doing things because you think it's going to benefit you as a family, us as a family, is the beginning of a deterioration of transgenerational success. And we believe very strongly in this, and we're very disciplined about it. And so at any point in time, when we're faced with a critical decision, we always put ourselves in the eyes of the shareholder to enable that decision. Another story that exemplifies this one is when we sold the Montreal Canadiens. This was in 2001, I think. 2001, maybe 1999, sometime around then. But Molson's, the beer company, was in many industries, and it decided, for the shareholders, that the best thing we can do for our shareholders was to be in the beer business exclusively. And we had owned the Montreal Canadiens since 1957, and so it was really part of our family DNA. It was part of our culture. And so beer and hockey and products that are good for your heart really worked well for us. But we were faced with a decision. Because we are committed to our shareholders to focus on beer, why do we own a hockey team? And we stuck to our guns. It was very difficult, but we sold the hockey team. We maintained a small percentage ownership in the team to make sure that we remained part of it within the Montreal community, but we sold the hockey team, and that was not an easy decision. And as the story continues later on in years, as early as or recent as 2 years ago, the family bought back the team. And that's how emotional we are about it. But our shareholders are ourselves now on that one. So the family has the responsibility to manage the Montreal Canadiens, which is an institution in Quebec. It's a very powerful brand. But at the same time, we did the right thing for our shareholders at Molson. And so we believe strongly in that. A third key principle that we also believe very strongly in is to support management. We believe that professionals managing our businesses is the right route to go. It's possible that there's a family member that is capable of being in that management group, but it needs to be earned. And as a family, the extent that we can support the management of our beer company and give them the confidence to go out and do things is the way we believe in managing a business. And so we don't get involved in things that are distraction. We don't distract management. And we believe that a management team that's not distracted is a management team that's able to perform better and to act autonomously, knowing they have our full support. Very important part of our culture, and we practice it. And as a board, Andrew and I are very diligent about that. And it's so easy to lose that focus because you want to get involved. You want to talk about the brands. You want to talk about, you want to provide advice. And providing advice is good to a certain extent, but as soon as you cross that line, you take away management's confidence that they can do it themselves. And that's a really important part of our culture as we look at our business. Finally, I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about innovation, because as a family, John Molson was a true innovator and an entrepreneur, and I talked a little bit about what he did. And our beer company is now in the process of really taking innovation to the next level. We have some products in the marketplace now that are innovative, that are sort of catapulting our confidence to be even more innovative. And one of them is in buckets in front of you. The beer is Molson Canadian, but the bucket says Molson M. And that is a beer that we spent 2.5 years developing with the brewers. We were trying to identify a taste profile that fits with the modern consumer. And we did thousands and thousands of taste tests of all the products, competitive and our own. And what we determined was the consumer was looking for a product that continues to have a good taste, but is more drinkable. I'll explain drinkable in a second. Doesn't mean they glug, 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 you know. More drinkable than a typical beer. And the feedback was this bloating feeling that people get when they consume beer. And so we worked very hard with the brewers to define a process that we call microcarbonation. And Molson M is the end product. It's a beer that maintains a good taste, but is microcarbonated to leave you with that less filling feeling afterwards. So if you haven't tried it, I recommend that you do. I used to be in sales with Molson, so you can tell I really know how to sell that one. And then obviously Molson Canadian 67 is another great innovation of ours, low-calorie, low-alcohol beer, which fits with the modern society. It maintains a very strong taste. In fact, in taste tests with competitive light beers, it actually outperforms them. And it's a fantastic, more responsible choice in the marketplace, and we're proud of that one. And then through Granville Island and through Creemore, which is an Ontario-based beer company, a micro beer company that's part of our fold, we have a new company that we've started called 6 Pints. And this company is all about identifying micro trends and satisfying consumer needs across the market. Micro consumer needs. And so some people like wheat beer, some people like ales, some people like dark ales, some people like porters. And we are in the process of ensuring that we can meet all of those needs because it certainly is an area of growth in the Canadian marketplace. And if you compare it to the wine business, for example, you walk into a wine store now, or the wine row of a grocery store, there are hundreds of choices, and people make their choices based on what they read. This is fruitier, this is stronger, this is sweeter, drier, and many, many more descriptors for wine. Well, beer can do that too. Beer paired with food is delicious. People just don't know it, and Molson Coors is going to bring that to life with this 6 Pints company. So there you have it. Shareholders, we believe in management, innovation, and planning for transgenerational success by balancing the long term with a complete commitment to satisfying shareholders' needs. Thank you.
So thank you, Geoff, for sharing some of the history and the heritage behind Molson Coors. Geoff has agreed to take some questions, so anybody wants to write them down. So first question is, what is the reputation of Canadian beer outside of North America? And is that changing? And if we need to improve it, how do we do that?
That's a good question. It depends where you go in the world, but in Europe and in Eastern Europe, we're learning that Molson Canadian beer, which is Molson, has a very good reputation, and we're not exactly sure why, but consumers know it. They think Canadians make great beer, and it's probably linked to some of the northern European countries where hockey is played, and it's becoming more and more of an international sport. When they watch hockey in North America, they see Molson, and they make the association. And so in Europe and Eastern Europe, we see great potential. Elsewhere in the world, we're significantly underdeveloped relative to American brands. And as you know, Coors Light is one of our brands, and that is in a market like China or Brazil or India. We see we're learning from the consumer that they like American brands, and so Coors Light is the lead horse in some of those other markets.
Great. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the strategy behind the Molson advertising campaigns that center on Canadian nationalism, such as I Am Canadian or the current Made from Canada advertising? And I guess the question is, I mean, obviously you did it because you thought it would be effective marketing and selling the product, but did the sort of cultural change that's come about and as a result of those ads catch the company by surprise?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between the I Am Canadian and the current Made from Canada campaign. The I Am Canadian campaign was tapping into the emotions of Canadians. Canadians are proud to be Canadian, but we've never sort of stood up there and said it. And Joe Canada did it. He said it, I'm Canadian. He was proud of it. And so that sort of ignited an emotional tie to the brand, but more importantly to our country. It impacted everybody. Made from Canada is sort of two-sided. The first, as we did our research across Canada, we learned that Canadians really are proud of things that are made from Canada. We learned that even though it's not the most exciting, I gotta phrase this the right way here. It's not Canada is not considered the most exciting country, but it's considered the most beautiful country and the cleanest country and the country with the nicest people. And so how do you translate that into an exciting marketing campaign? And as we went deeper and deeper, we discovered something we hadn't necessarily thought about, that Molson Canadian truly is Canadian, made with Canadian everything, Canadian people, Canadian ingredients, Canadian water. And so we tapped into an emotional nerve with that campaign. At the same time, with that campaign, Canadians are also proud of their environment. And we tried very hard to tie in an environmental side to this brand and a commitment to the environment, a real commitment to the environment through this brand, so that, again, it's truly Canadian. So it's balancing that emotional tie with our country, being made from Canada and committed to the environment.
Great, and maybe one final question. So around the world, Coors offers some 65 brands in more than 30 countries, and so you have your finger on everything around the world. Is there a particular trend or two in terms of what's happening in terms of beer consumption, beverage consumption, and or a particular trend or two you'd like to highlight?
Gosh, there's so many. I think the younger generation that's younger than all of us in this room is developing as far as alcohol consumption, is developing a sweeter tooth, a tooth that appreciates variety, but at the same time, the traditional beers that we've seen in the marketplace, while they continue to be important, the younger consumers have way more opportunities to try different things. And many of those different beverages are sweeter beverages. And so one of the micro trends that we look at through Six Pints is how can we attract those consumers that are choosing a sweeter alternative to a bitter ale or a bitter lager. And so all kinds of interesting results, some of which are not in the market yet. But a small example of that would be Molson Canadian 67 Sublime, which has that lime taste, which offers a sweeter alternative to a typical beer. And so that's one of the micro trends that we're experiencing in the marketplace that's important for us to target.
Well, thank you. I think that's we're about out of time for questions. So on behalf of the Board of Trade and Molson Coors, thank you for sharing your insights. And please accept that.